Welcome to this week's OK at Work with myself, Sarah Sawyer, and my colleague, Russell Berger, both attorneys at Offit Kurman. And today we are talking about the offboarding process for employees. So often on here, we've talked about terminations and when to terminate, how to terminate, things to consider when terminating employees. But what do you do next after you take that step? Let's say you decide to terminate someone, or even if they quit. So we can also talk separations as well. What's some practical things that employers should be considering when offboarding an employee, Russell?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing is you should have a plan. I mean, you shouldn't go through with terminating someone until you know kind of what that's going to look like from an offboarding standpoint. And there's some basic things that are common to basically all positions, which is kind of IT compliance, like taking them off the system right away, either deactivating the email account, putting up an email forward, making sure the emails that are inbound go to the right person to manage them, maybe shutting off the ability to send outgoing emails, so no one's kind of representing themselves as still part of the company, or no one's emailing from that that former employee's email address. Gets disconnected from their phone, all those sorts of things. So I think there's a whole host of IT issues that need to be handled. And then there's kind of the physical stuff, making sure people get packed up, they're not grabbing files, they're leaving behind confidential information, and facilitating that process as well.
Yeah, and there's, a lot of it too is a big practical part of offboarding the employees and removing that access is what they might do with that information, right? So if you aren't quick enough to disconnect them, will they be reaching out to stakeholders? Will they be doing something with that information, saving it, sending it to themselves, taking information that might be useful to them at their next job, bad mouthing the company to other people, those types of things. So some of that stuff can't be avoided, even if you do remove their access and take them offline and do all the things you're supposed to do that day. They might still have information or contacts or things. I know sometimes we'll deal with employees who are reaching out to stakeholders and maybe acting like they're still part of the company, or doing some things that are somewhat unexpected or surprising to employers, I would say. And depending on what that behavior looks like, there's a couple different ways to deal with that. Obviously, if someone's reaching out and communicating with people, acting as if they're still part of the company or on behalf of the company, definitely need to remove their apparent authority and deal with that as it relates to that specific former employee, and then also whoever they're contacting and who else might be impacted by that. But if it's something where they're just trying to create some ruckus from a practical perspective, you might want to consider, well, is it going to make the situation worse if we address it directly and head on? Do we just need them to kind of spin themselves out? What's the practical best solution?
Yeah. Well, and to add to that too, I mean, there's also kind of like redirecting workflow. So this person was doing work, maybe they weren't doing it all that well. That's why, they're leaving the company, but maybe they were, or either way, they were certainly doing something. So who's going to do that? Who's going to pick it up? Just developing the plan for that is really important, as is, I think if you've got someone with a restrictive covenant and it's got either a non-compete or a non-solicit or whatever it has, I think just giving the employee a reminder of that, can go a long way. It's way better to remind them of something and put the deterrent thought out there than it is to, have them go somewhere, breach it because they didn't know about it and are going to dig their heels in because now that's their job. So good to get in front of that as well.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Russell. Just making sure you're communicating with the employee at the time of termination on exactly next steps and any other questions that they might have as it relates to benefits and paychecks. And the more that you can just address with the employee up front, the less likely you are to have to deal with a lot of follow-up, and also issues like you mentioned as far as removal of information, violating their agreements, things like that. So communication and a plan is definitely key, as a plan's always good, right, Russell?
Yeah. We're very pro plan here at OK at Work.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks, Russell. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sarah.